What do I do for cooking? I have trouble with my hands and always get pain with stirring and chopping, which makes cooking really hard. Now, this is another one that I hear about quite a bit. So we're gonna come on over here, and again, I'm gonna take advantage of my kitchen and my ability to show you some things. And with cooking, it's all about making kind of little tweaks and changing things up a little bit to make it easier for yourself. Because remember, whatever you're making, it's all about the final product, and exactly how you get there, nobody knows what tools you use. And so find the ones that are gonna work best for you. First of all, start with thicker handles. So if you have something that's thinner is harder to hold on to. It's harder to control. It takes more force in that hand. You're gonna wear out faster. So try and find things that have those thicker, wider handles. Those are gonna be much easier for you to use. Now, same thing with chopping. Take a larger knife. We wanna use physics to our benefit, not make it harder. So if you have a larger knife, you can create more force with less effort. We like that. So again, larger handle, but then you have this longer lever arm that's gonna make that a much easier move. Now you switch down to something smaller, not only is it harder on your hand to grip, but then you have to create more force, and a lot of times you start seeing yourself shift over it to try and use body weight to get that to go. That's harder on your wrist, your hand. So stick with your larger knife options, bigger handles. It's gonna be easier for you. Now, yes, there are things that you need smaller knives and stuff for, but try and make adjustments where you can, so that way you save that force for the stuff you really need. Now, the other piece is use small machines. Okay? There are so many out there that make life so much easier. Use them. Chopping, if this is hard for you, they make little blender cups, choppers that are much easier where you can just plug and push. That works well. If stirring is hard for you and you've got shoulder issues, whatever, look at stir sticks. Things that you can kind of put in and hold. Again, you have a bigger handle to hold on to, and you don't have to use quite as much force. So those are things that can be really helpful as well. Now, move these out of the way. Lifting and carrying, emptying dishwashers. I spend a ton of time teaching people how to empty a dishwasher, ironically. But one of the things you want to watch for is that if you hold, we're going to go with a stack of plates, but it could be one plate like this. Even if you're trying to use that C shape and really trying to work, once you get a lot of force, I don't know if you can see, but there is no way my fingers are going to be able to hold that. And you don't have to. So don't use those little muscles for things that you don't really need to. Put your whole hand under your plate, and now you're using your bigger muscles in your arm and your forearm to support and hold. Use two hands. Use two hands to carry. It's gonna make that easier and not so straining. Another option, use your forearm. Obviously you don't wanna drop something and you don't wanna crank your wrist, but the more weight you can shift to your forearm, you're shifting that weight to those larger muscles and not having to use those little hand muscles to grip or putting so much torque on those joints. It makes it much easier. And when you put dishes away, as you're going up, the higher you go, the more force you get on your shoulders. It's all physics, basically. The farther you get away from your body, the heavier and more force that takes. So what you want to do is make sure the stuff that you're using regularly, keep it at levels that are easier to reach. And it sounds simple, and why wouldn't you do that? But it's amazing how many people will have stuff stored up high where every repetition is a struggle on their shoulders or their neck. So if you have that option to make that adjustment, please do. If you don't have that option because that's the way your kitchen is set up and that's the only thing you have, then go with lighter weight. Put them away one at a time versus doing a stack if that's going to be harder for you. But again, the more inconvenient the setup, the more you really need to try and use and maximize some of these other techniques. Now, lastly, button pushing. There are all sorts of buttons that we end up needing to push, use. Some of them are easy, some of them not so much. I'm gonna show you on my blender stick. So how many times do we end up really trying to force something and we end up hyperextending our thumb or our finger? And when you're trying to create a lot of force, it's gonna go through that joint. Even though you're trying not to, a lot of times it still doesn't work. So something easy to try, use your knuckle. You can go this way. Now you've taken out some of those joints, you've created this nice straight movement, and you can create a lot better force that way without getting all of that hyperextension. Is it gonna work on every button? No. But it at least gives you something to try when you find yourself just jamming your thumb into something and your thumb's getting really sore. So that gives you an idea anyway. Now, I also thought it might be fun to kind of do a fun fact, fun party trick. And with hypermobility, so many things are, we grew up doing kind of fun party trick type things, thinking they were cool. And now we kind of start to know, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea that I could put my foot behind my head. But one of the things I do want you to see is this thing called a Palmaris Longus. Now, this is a muscle, and it runs from the inside of your elbow up here down into the palm of your hand. So it's a fairly long muscle. But one of the interesting things about this is that not everybody has one. About 13% of people don't. And so I thought it might be fun for you to learn that you have one or not, and be able to kind of check on yourself. So I'm actually one of those people who I have one in one arm and not the other, so I'm a great person to show you the difference. So the Palmaris Longus, if you can see on there, is this tendon right here. And like I said, it runs from here down into your palm, and it flexes that wrist a little bit. So if you tighten up and just bend that wrist a little bit, that helps. So you can see in this one, go ahead and come this way so we can see with the light. Nothing there. That's what it should look like. Just like that. Okay. So, something fun to do today. Check on yourself, see whether or not you have one, and see which camp you belong to.